The guy has cancer, man. I found pills in his pocket. Okay, the same ones my dad took for like pancreatic cancer.
So, a guy with cancer can't be an asshole? Huh, believe me, I speak from experience.
I can't rip off a guy with cancer. I'm sorry.
Do you know how many of the suckers we've ripped off have sob stories? Every single one of them. Besides, it'll be months before they even realize they've been taken. This guy will already be dead, so please get back in your truck, go back to the house, and finish the job.
No, man. I can't do that. I can't.
All right, I get it. You get over it, okay? Please, believe me. Before you know it, you forget all about it. Go.
Hello and welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. And welcome to our 101st episode, where we may or may not be returning to bad habits like our boy Gene. Joining me today to discuss the 11th episode of Better Call Saul's final season is always waiting by the payphone to give me some not so good news. It's Ebube!
Good to be here, and this week we are Breaking Bad.
This week we're Breaking Bad. Anyways, I have so much to say about this episode. Let's talk about this episode. But before we go into Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad and Walt and Jimmy and Gene and everyone, first of all, I guess we'll just talk about it off air, but I guess I can say it for the public. You just celebrated your birthday, so congrats, happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Yesterday was a very nice day.
Speaking of it being a nice day, that's good. Some good TV came out on your birthday. That's fun. Have you seen Industry? The season 2 premiere of Industry?
I have not watched that yet, but I'm going to do so tonight. Yeah.
Well,
I actually really like that show. And I like AO's thoughts on certain things. But yeah, I like that show a lot. I'm looking forward to watching the beginning of season 2 tonight.
Yeah, and when you do that,
we talk about it later.
Yeah, when you do that, you can go listen to our episode on season 2, episode 1.
Yeah.
That's right, guys. We'd have episodes on the season 2 premiere of Industry. We are going to be covering season 2 weekly on this season. The episodes will go up immediately after the episodes finish airing on HBO Max. So, yeah, that's right. No matter where you are, once you watch the latest episode of Industry, the episode will be out for you to listen. So you can listen to Ayo and I's thoughts about the messiness of Pierpoint. Also, we might be releasing some interesting episodes on some interesting shows over the next few weeks. We'll figure all that out. But how best can you keep abreast of all these episodes, you might ask? Well, you follow us. That's how. You follow us the same way the DA were following Francesca everywhere. Follow us on whatever platform you're listening on right now, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And then just rate and review us because you like our voices and you think that we're doing a good job. Or rate and review us because you don't like our voices and you're tired of me begging every time. Whichever way, just rate and review us. So yeah, I don't want to spend too much time because I really want to get into this Better Call Saul episode. So yeah, we're going to talk about Better Call Saul season 6, episode 11. We have 2 episodes left to the series finale, the Gilligan-verse finale. This episode is titled Breaking Bad, as Ebube alluded to at the beginning of this episode, and it's written and directed by series stalwart Thomas Schnauz, whose last outing was obviously the Candle episode. Let's just refer to it as that.
The Candle episode series.
I did get one call after everything went down. Kim. Checking in on me.
No kidding?
Mm-hmm. Your name came up. Asked if you were alive.
She asked about me. What did you tell her?
Nothing.
But she asked.
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to get your general thoughts before we go too deep. What are your general thoughts on this episode? What do you think of this episode?
I thought it was a bit weird. I feel like it was interesting how we got new information and context on things we already knew about, even the infamous Lalo moment and such, I think there's a lot of good Easter eggs. I don't know how I feel about the jumping back and forth. The transitions were nice, especially during the montages.
They're beautiful.
But there were parts of those back and forth scenarios, I guess, in terms of the time jumps, that felt a little bit jarring. But like I said, it was cool to see some of those Easter eggs. Like we know that there's a moment in Breaking Bad where Saul goes to talk to Walt in his classroom, and what we've essentially just seen is, the process of that happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's very telling that they took their time to show us Mike really, really not wanting him to do that. And, Mike being right overall, because now we see that it's essentially Saul's fault that things kind of went downhill.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to that in a second, and those two special guest stars. As an episode of television, I don't think I have faults on it in terms of like a piece of art. I mean, it's so all right.
Solid, really solid.
But it was so depressing. I found it so depressing to watch.
Truly.
Even trying to rewatch it, I could not concentrate. I could not it was. And let's go into it, because I don't think I was happy once during this episode, except maybe seeing Walt and Jesse bicker. I don't think I was happy at all throughout the episode.
Yeah, honestly, it was such doom and gloom, right from, this guy going back to dude's house. And speaking of which, that lady getting a computer might be the death of them all. I just really hope she's not awake to do something that is inconvenient later on. But yeah, I mean, them going back, him picking things up. I really want to know what he said to Kim, if he got Kim on the phone.
So,
we don't know. At first, I thought he was doing those scams I thought that had something to do with the Kim situation. I don't know. Maybe that sent him over the edge, or maybe he was trying to get back at somebody who had hurt Kim or whatever. But then it becomes clear that he's just doing it because I guess he needs the rush again, which is bad because you're supposed to be hiding.
So I had a question I was going to ask you, which is, I guess you've kind of answered it being that you don't really know, but like, what do you think is the thing that pushes him? Is it because he had a taste of blood in the last episode with the mall scam, or is it that conversation with Kim, quote unquote, that really is like, oh, I'm going back to being Saul?
I think it's whatever happened on the phone, honestly. I think it's whatever happened on the phone, because the truth is, he did what he did in Nippy as a matter of self-defense.
Yeah.
It was insurance. He was trying to make sure that all his flanks were covered. He saw a little bit of a threat, a little bit of a tiny chip in his armor, and he wanted to make sure that was dealt with immediately, swiftly, firmly. And now, it's like, I think it's something I've said about Jimmy before in some of our conversations. He really likes to, I guess he needs to establish that he's in control of certain situations. When he loses power, he kind of lashes out, but he doesn't lash out in typical ways of aggression, unless it's, towards panes of glass and trash cans. But usually he ends up just trying to assert his dominance and control by winning somehow.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the easiest ways to win usually are the most seedy ways to win. So he ends up going through something like that. And I guess he wants to feel like he can still enjoy something. Sometimes it's to get his mind off things. And that's because at his core, Jimmy is a deflector. He tends to run from issues. He doesn't really confront them. And I think that's one of his, fatal flaws, so to speak. Like if we say Walt's fatal flaw is pride, we could say Jimmy's fatal flaw is maybe denial, not necessarily cowardice, because he does have bravery. But I think it's sort of it's like this. He has this hesitation to reckon with himself, essentially. So I guess whatever happened on that phone call, he decides that he wants to kind of get his mind off of that. He starts scamming people who he believes are quote unquote assholes, which even leads me to another part of his thought process and all this. He always feels like he's doing it to people who deserve it.
Yeah.
He's like, I've gone out of my way to find people who are like, who have money, who live alone, blah, blah, blah. And at first I wondered if he was even sparing that cancer guy. I wondered if he gave him a different cab or something, but it turns out that's not the case.
Yeah, you kind of, because we've spent we spent almost 10 years watching Jimmy. Like, you kind of believe that there's still a bit of, anyway, which is a bit of good in Jimmy.
He's lost his humanity, right? So
yeah. So I'm more inclined to agree with the fact that it's the conversation or lack thereof, that conversation with Kim that pushes him over the edge. I guess the only real argument against that would be that he was already wearing Marco's ring during that phone call. So maybe, but I still think it's that. Before going into the details of the episode, I want to talk about the title of the episode.
Very meta.
Because obviously it's titled Breaking Bad, right? And when you see that, I was like, okay. I was like, fair enough that you guys actually have like the balls to just name it Breaking Bad, because okay, this is the episode that Walt and Jesse are gonna come in. But also obviously Saul's first appearance in Breaking Bad is titled Better Call Saul. Yeah. And then this one is titled Breaking Bad.
Such symmetry.
And I'm like, oh, that's it. And then it's only when as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh wait, it's not just that though. Like, Gene is Breaking Bad.
It's the fact that Gene is Breaking Bad, yeah.
Gene is Breaking Bad. And we're almost kind of seeing Saul break bad as well.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, like, it's not, Saul was doing stupid scams or quote unquote or class action suits. He wasn't like representing a drug kingpin before this
friend of
part
the
of his life. So Saul is Breaking Bad. Gene is Breaking Bad. And it's just like, oh, I get, okay. It's not just like a cute Easter egg title. It actually like really deeply relates to the themes of the episode. Mm-hmm. And based on what you said earlier about how just last week's scam in the Nippy episode kind of had a higher purpose to it, right? He wasn't doing it to feed himself or to get money. He was doing it to kind of save his life and protect himself, right? And it was fun. It was, I listened to or read, I can't remember what I did, a review that kind of described it as like a victimless crime. Yeah. Right? Which is kind of what, like, which is why we could cheer for it. But for me, the disparity between watching that con or that heist in Nippy episode and watching this one is so huge. Like, I was so depressed watching this. This was not fun at all.
Because you don't want this for this guy.
I was like,
right?
Oh my God, what are you doing? Like,
just no need.
Which is a random coincidence, because I think it was it might actually be on the episode that just came out, or maybe it was in our preview episode talking about industry. I was talking about how one of my worst TV, I guess you can call it tropes, is the addict relapsing. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I gave Succession as an example. Like, we know it's going to happen, and we know why it should happen, because that's real life. That's what happens, is struggle and all that. But I just personally, like, I don't like Kendall being sober for 7 episodes and then not being sober. And then this is almost like that, because he's relapsing. He's becoming you're there. You are literally out. Don't do this. Yeah. Don't do this, Gene.
It's almost self-destructive in a sense.
And I don't think I've been ever more sure that, like, he's not, because again, this is something that we mentioned. We kind of like, oh, last week's episode was, as a finale, is the best possible ending Jimmy stroke Saul stroke Gene could have, right? It's the best case scenario, is as happy an ending as they're going to get. And watching this week's episode, I haven't been more sure that he's not going to have a happy ending. Right?
Yeah, man, it's so sad.
This is not ending in a happy way for him.
From the mom finding out to one of these guys to having a literal, like, moral compass all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. To, I mean, now there's just too much information that's out there. There are too many moving parts. Like, his happy idiots from before, those are like smart happy idiots, at least to an extent. Like, Huel is very, very trustworthy. He is dependable. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I feel about Jeffy and Buddy. Like, and these guys, they don't seem that smart.
Jeff is not keeping quiet for you.
He's definitely not.
Jeff is not here.
Gosh, man, I don't know. Like, he's endangering himself. Like, now he went from trying to polish off scratches in the armor to taking like a battle axe and just whacking it.
Yeah, it's really, because, like, I mean, we can have an entire episode on what's like the Gilligan verse does with morality and how they reward morality or lack thereof, right? Who they deem is a good person, or is a bad person or is a good person stuck in a bad situation or whatever, right? But I think the moment Gene decides to go back into this life and then decides to go ahead with the cancer patient, they're like, okay, this guy is not, he might not be Walter White or Heisenberg or Gustavo Fring, but he's not a good person. He
sounded like them, though.
Very much so. And I don't think it was only this episode that I realized, even just the what they call it, the facial connections with Walter. Was
Yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, he has a
yeah,
mustache as well.
he was literally, it was giving Walter. Like the whole
Yeah.
time, it was just giving Heisenberg. The way he said it, the way he was like, go, we don't need you, keep your mouth shut. Like it was almost a mirror image. And I remember just thinking, my goodness, this is literally giving Walt you. Like, what are you doing?
I think it was the moment he ordered the swing master, and I was like, oh fuck, Saul is
Yeah,
out.
now you're just enjoying for enjoying sake.
I was like, oh, Saul is out. This is Saul coming out, isn't it? Like, it's just, that's the type of pleasure that, is a very Saul-like pleasure. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And as immediately that happens, we go into the montage of the heist and the strip club and the sex workers and removing the glasses. And I was like, oh my God, this is so depressing to watch. I've never felt so depressed watching a TV character.
A downward spiral.
I was like, oh, and it's not as if, I don't think I was someone that was cheering. Like, I wasn't like, give Jimmy McGill a happy ending. But I didn't realize how painful this would feel. I didn't realize how depressing watching this would feel. I was like, oh, this is not fun at all. I mean, it's one thing to watch the episode of Point and Shoot. No, sorry, Fun and Games, when that ends from the Kim and Jimmy fight to Saul. That's already quite depressing and sad. But this, watching him go back to Saul is yeah. Point of note, obviously, this episode starts with Francesca, or it starts with it's not me, it's Ignacio scene. But after the cold open, it starts with Francesca going to answer this phone, at this payphone. And that's a reference to, I think it was season 4, episode 5, Quite a Ride or something like that, in which we see a flash forward to, which I'm assuming is the Ozymandias episode of Breaking Bad, in which Saul is clearing out his office and he tells Francesca to answer this phone at this time. And now I think, based on my research being reading reviews, I think that date is November 3rd, which would be 2010. And apparently that's Jimmy's birthday. That's Jimmy's 50th birthday. So, I mean, we've seen, i.e. Stranger Things, that like sometimes creators forget their characters' birthdays. But it just feel like Breaking Bad, Gillingerverse, Better Call Saul don't make that mistake. Like they know that is Saul's 50th birthday.
Huh.
So I mean, how does Breaking Bad start? It's Walter White's 50th birthday.
Yeah.
He breaks bad that. So it's like, it's 50th. It's like, and then that's when Saul decides, or Gene rather decides to break bad into Saul. So I can't be
like, I have nothing left to lose. I'm not going to go down sedentary. I have to, like, almost as if he's punishing himself. It's like, well, I guess I might as well just blow it all up, which is a very Walt thing to do. Oh my goodness.
It's like, when I read I was his 50th birthday, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Because this could be the pilot of another show. This could be the pilot of another 4 or 5 season show. So, like I said, this episode is written and directed by Thomas Schnauz. He's obviously his last run on the show, and he's the third prong of the trinity of the show, right? Is Gould and Gilligan and Thomas Schnauz, and
exactly.
There are just some transitions in there that I think were just, apart from being beautiful, there were a lot that were very thematically poignant. I mean, the best one to me, the coffin one, when
the grave
one, and then it's blended to look like Saul is, or rather Gene actually is being buried alive. Which I guess it kind of was. Oh,
they're literally, it's like they're saying,
it's so depressing.
It's like they're telling that they're nodding to us and saying, you know what, this does end up being his grave. He does end up going down this hole at some point. It took years, but here he is. And then they proceed with the whole like prostitute thing with the strippers and all that stuff, the money going down, and it's like that whole sequence was silently saying, this is where he's gonna end up. This is how he's gonna get there, and this is why. So it's just and it's just like you can't really justify it, because you're like, why are you doing this? You worked so hard, then you worked hard to dodge accountability. You somehow succeeded. Yes, you're sad now, but this could be a lot worse. Why are you destroying this? Like there's no need for you to break bad. At least with Walt's case, there was some justification at first, theoretically. But I guess maybe in Jimmy, Gene, Saul's case, maybe that justification does exist, but it's inside that phone call that we don't know.
Oh, I
about yet.
definitely think there's something like, we don't know what the call is, but like there's definitely something there that it's bad. Like the way he loses his shit, it's bad. It could range from like the fact that Kim is dead to the fact that she calls him a murderer. What, I don't know. Like it's definitely something there that is just. But it's like, look, I don't agree. I don't understand. But I know why he broke bad and started doing these scams again. We understand that. Like he's Jimmy. But why would he go back to the Kevin Sussman's character? Like, unless that character has something that is so important. Like, I mean, this is Jimmy. I guess it's not Jimmy. That's the whole point, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I saw a review where they kind of said that, I'm sorry, no free ads, because all these people that I'm reading reviews are all bigger platforms than me, so whatever. That's my pettiness. No, so I saw a review where they kind of described last week's heist as a Jimmy heist and this week's heist as a Saul heist, which obviously that's why they get paid. They get paid the big bucks because it makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, I have to give it to them.
No, but because like Jimmy is the person who was like, look, Kim, this judge is different from the one we have. Let's abort here, and it like just don't go ahead with this. It makes like I don't understand why he's doing this. Like why he's going to the house, he's breaking in. Like, it's just one score.
Literally, once that glass broke, I was like, bro, like, you can't let one go.
Exactly,
you actually can't just let one go.
You can say, okay, I'll do 2 tomorrow or something. Like, it's not that deep. Like, I need to know why he feels like he need to actually go back.
They could even do 0 tomorrow. Like, it's not like with a drug cartel where, like, you know, people are waiting to receive money on the other end, and you know you have to bring it or you get shot. There's, like, you don't have to do this. Nobody is waiting on you. Nobody's like, none of you have dependents. All the 3 of you are you're just doing this for the sake of doing it because I don't know. Like this whole thing is self-destructive.
And if Buddy and Jeff are like,
weird.
do we, and he's not even like, he's not using the money, obviously, he's storing the money. It's just a lot of like, why do you need to do this?
Which is also a very Walt thing to do. That's another moment that it hit me.
And that would not come back to play a part. Of course it won't in the next 2 episodes.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, it's just like, I can't remember I'm sure I've experienced it. I'm sure I haven't said it on the podcast, but I can't remember the last time I just felt this depressed watching a show. And I was like, oh, come on, Jimmy. Like, and it's weird because it's not that I expect, he's not this beacon of like morality. I don't expect more from Jimmy / Saul / Gene, or I wasn't rooting for him. I just come on, like you're better than this. I know he's better than this. Even if he's like, I know he's better than this.
Yeah.
I mean, we should mention that Francesca kind of gives us some more tidbits into the time span between the end of Breaking Bad and the beginning of or end of El Camino, which I know you haven't seen, but like
she mentions that his car is at the border.
Yes, well, which is something that happens in El Camino. They kind of put his border. I think they put his car by the Mexican border. But I think he goes north, so obviously, anyone that is looking for him is going the other direction.
Yeah.
She mentions that Skylar,
I heard about
Skylar's got a deal, which obviously means that the whole thing that Walt gave her about Hank and Gomi's bodies worked in helping her get a deal. She mentions that Hugh went back home because he wasn't just left in that room.
Yeah, we thank God.
One question before, I don't know if I should ask this now or before we go into Walt and Jesse, but it's been a while since I rewatched Breaking Bad. I can't remember when I did it, but it's been a few years. Did we know that Saul was this instrumental in like the connection of Walt, Jesse, Gus, Mike? Is that something we knew from the show, or like because from this it clearly shows that he was very like he's the reason that these 2 worlds combine. Like he's more instrumental in the events of Breaking Bad than we actually thought he was. From at least from what I gathered.
I think
from this
we
episode.
did know.
Do we know? Okay.
I think we did know because he was kind of the glue that served as a mutual party, essentially, because he starts out as their, lawyer who represents criminals. Jesse is the one who's like, this guy's supposed to be really, really good, blah, blah, blah. But they don't know who he's working for. I mean, in this situation, he tells him, I think, like Saul actually tells Mike, like, is this you saying this, or is this about he who shall not be named? Which he's talking about Gus, right?
It's Gus.
And then I realized that does Jimmy / Saul even know Gus? I don't think they ever.
That's what I'm saying. So I think in Breaking Bad, we don't get the idea that Jimmy knows that that Mike is working for Gus until I think much later in the show. But from this,
Yeah.
we get the impression that he already knows. Like, so it's like, okay, he's more.
He knows Mike works for someone, but he doesn't know who.
Oh no, I think he knows. I think he knows who. I think he's just doing like the Voldemort thing. I don't think he's like I don't know who you're talking about. I think he knows it, but he's like, I don't want to mention his name.
Yeah, probably. Actually, now that I think about it, he does know. I mean, especially after all the stuff that happened with Lalo.
Yeah.
He definitely knows. But yeah, I think he wondered, like, is this somebody that we should bring into this thing? He's wondering if we should let it go. So I don't know if I think it's a mix of Jimmy, or I guess Saul in this particular case, trying to ensure that Walt, it's the Jimmy in Saul that's trying to ensure that Walt can take care of his family, can get the money to deal with the whole cancer thing. And there's also the Saul in Saul that's like, this guy could bring us a lot of money. Let's try and bring him in. So it's kind of like empathy versus greed.
That's a very
sympathy versus greed.
That's a very hopeful read, and I'm going to hold on to that because I did not read it at all. Like, I read it just as Saul wanting to manage him and take 10%. Like, I didn't even read it as caring at all, because again, this shows us that he knows about the cancer way earlier than like when Walt tells him
way
Bad.
earlier.
So it's like, I mean, that's a hopeful read, and let's hold on to that for the little shred of humanity that Jimmy has left. But I did not read it.
Yeah,
like
that's
that
literally Jimmy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
For Saul, like, it was definitely about getting money out of the guy. So I would hope that there's some Jimmy in there that's like, you know, let's try and like actually see why this guy is doing this. And I guess he's looking for some kind of justification. But it could also be that there's no Jimmy involved in this at all, and this is just about him not letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
But the way he didn't want to let it go, even after Mike told him to, makes me feel like there's a little bit of depth there. Like there's some kind of reason he's mentally/emotionally invested in this guy.
What I should have done before this, I'll go and do it now, is actually watch that scene again, like the chemistry class scene, because obviously we know what he's going to do. He's about to go ambush Walt in his chemistry class. I need to go read what that scene again. But yeah, it's just weird how every scene now with Saul is just tinged with this kind of, oh my God. Like,
it's like they promised, you know, you'll see Breaking Bad differently.
Like
those are their exact words.
But I do think, like, apart from all that, I think Saul has gone from being not bumbling, but the colorful side character lawyer to, at least to me, he's now someone who has a lot more agency.
Integral.
And I was like, oh, you do know who Gus is, and you are kind of like setting these things in motion. Like you do want what, like, I know we do know that Gus is interested for whoever Heisenberg is, right? Or at least he interested in the blue meth. At this point, even he's like, because Gil talks about how Gus has been obsessing about the blue meth for a while. So even if like Gus is saying that they're small potatoes right now, we know that like he still wants to know like the Heisenberg
especially now
story.
That we've seen that this lab didn't just pop out of nowhere.
Exactly how much of work that went into making that lab.
Yeah. A lab specifically for cooking meth. So
you know how, I'm sorry, this is random, but you know how they say like if somebody dies in property, you should disclose it. Mm-hmm. Like that. So, do you think God should be telling his chemist that look, 2 people are buried underneath this lab? So if you see,
I don't think he ever would.
So if you see a random fly flying around, it might be their ghost.
Maybe.
Don't spend an entire episode just trying to kill it because you're not going to catch it.
I can only see Gus saying something like that as a threat to be like, oh, by the way, the guys before you, they're under the ground.
Yeah.
I think with the things we've seen now, happy endings are looking less and less optimistic. It's just, you know, this could have ended on like some type of neutral, you know, what if note. But I guess Saul within Gene can't let that happen.
I mean,
because the writers can't let that happen.
Yeah, we did say that last week's episode was if that was a finale, that's as best a happy ending finale you could get. That's a series finale, right? If you wanted to give them,
we're having a whole bunch of endings.
Yeah, as in like if the show ended with the last 2 episodes, i.e., we see how Kim leaves him and then he becomes Saul, and then Breaking Bad happens, and then we see him do one last con in what they call it in Nebraska, and then it ends there. I mean, it's as happy an ending as a show like this could ever get. Like there is no happier ending. Like he's not going to run away with Kim in the sunset. That's as happy an ending as it could be. But like the show is like, that's not what we're going to give you because these guys believe that this character is a lot worse than a lot of us actually think. Probably, I think Jimmy / Saul / Jane is a bad character, but I never thought he was as bad as probably the writers believe he is. Which is another thing because I think the writers of Breaking Bad, i.e., the same writers, plus some extra writers, were always like, Walt is a bad guy.
a bad guy who just
But
didn't have the
people kept on
resources to be
saying,
bad.
people also like Team Walt and like Skylar is the villain. And people are like, no, Walt
Yeah.
didn't die. So they're like, okay, you guys didn't want to get to the first time. We're going to double down now and let you guys know that this guy is a bad guy. He's
like
not,
these guys are not,
they're not
morally sound.
Exactly. They're not the role models you think they are. Like the Breaking Bad fandom is, especially online at least, let me not generalize, but it can get quite toxic, especially in their love for Walt and hatred of Skylar, in which you're like, this is not, and the writers are like, this is not the character we're writing. Like, you guys are reading this character wholly wrong. Like, this guy is not a good guy. So I think maybe it's them being like, okay, look, and this is the second time you didn't watch Camino, but like this is the second time that they're saying that, look, Walt is dead. Because there are all these theories around that he survived, or whatever. Like, no, Walt is
and like,
dead.
Why do people need that to be the case?
Because to them, he was the hero. Like, it's I guess it's the Don Draper thing. Like, they think Walter White is the hero, and then the writers are like, no. So maybe now they're doubling down, like, look, this guy is not good.
And the funny thing is that Don Draper knows he is not the hero. Deep down, Walter also knows he's not the hero. Gene is definitely aware of it. Like, this whole thing reminds me of,
do you think Gene is aware he's not the hero
Alan?
At this point?
I think at this point he kind of is. I think he...
You don't think he's still in that delusion?
I think he doesn't forgive himself. Like, he could have been a hero. He wanted to be a hero. Situations from a whole bunch of angles, including Chuck, led him to a point where he felt like, well, he had to be the villain because it's easier and more lucrative anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jimmy has always been a guy who wants to take the easy way out. Like, his whole MO has been shortcuts from the beginning. He learned it from the people who used to rob his dad. He learned it from all kinds of other things. That's why he started doing the scams in the first place. So I think there's a lot to sort of be gleaned from the way he reacts to certain things, the way he ponders every move now. I mean, he sits in silence, taking stock of what he's doing, what he's done, what he might do, and he's becoming more and more ruthless in a way that resembles Walt. So I think he's kind of aware of that degradation morally, and he's just accepting it. It's almost as if it's some kind of self-inflicted retribution. But people will still want to root for the character doing all these things the way they rooted for Walt. And it reminds me of like Alan Moore and Watchmen. Because literally, like, there are these people who would like ride or die for Rorschach. And Alan Moore actually came out and told them, you are all sick. Like, you are psychos, because I don't know how you cannot clearly see that this guy is not meant to be your role model. The whole point is to show that this is what you should not be. Look at where it gets him. Like, this is somebody who doesn't sleep. He walks around like a homeless guy during the day, and then he fights people at night, literally beating the crap out of them for no discernible reason. Of course he has mental health issues. He was trying to say this is what Batman should actually be. He should, like, if he's never sleeping, this is how he's supposed to look. He's not your hero. Like, Rorschach he has all these radical ideas too. And we even see in the Watchmen TV show, like after the comics, we see how the people who co-opted Rorschach's message have turned it into something that it really might never have even been intended to be. And, people kind of fix things into their own agenda. So I don't know. I think, the Walt is king people need to hold it. They just need to calm down for a second and look at what's actually going on here.
Yeah. Okay, quickly, speaking of Walt and Jesse, what did you think of their use in this episode?
I thought it was interesting. I thought the performances were actually funny. Aaron Paul as Jesse seemed a little bit surreal. There was always he just seemed kind of tired the whole time, and I just thought that was.
But I think that's
funny.
how Jesse was. Jesse was just like, my god, always like him. I forgot how much they used to bicker.
Yeah, the bickering was great. I think Jesse actually did see Walt as a role model until he realized that he was the devil incarnate, and Walt was still a guy who wanted to bring the best out of Jesse, because as his teacher from before, it's like, you have so much potential that you are not harnessing, and I don't like that. So there's a little bit of that dynamic in there. I like how, how Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul cinematography is, like, they'll show you the little pieces so you can start to piece together what's going on. I mean, I think for a lot of people who've been paying attention, once you saw him lying there, you knew exactly what this was. Yeah. But I like how they showed little by little, like they showed the phosphorus, they showed like the tools that they were using.
They showed meth,
and even right up at the end, where they showed the literal methamphetamine. and they show the methylamine. They show
Bullet holes on the door.
they show like right at the end the bullet holes and the duct tape that they've used to cover it. Like that was really really fun to see because he's still shouting, and it's nice to. I love it when we can see things we already know from angles that we didn't know existed. And I think that's how you really build worlds. So
And I think,
you build
yeah,
worlds that way, and it's fun.
I think really going into, because all this, I mean, we should say that this is probably the best Walt ever was, because this is like very early season 2. I think it's like mid season 2 at most, I think. So
Yeah,
like,
really, really, really
so
early.
maybe like 14 episodes in at most. So like Walt is still,
Yeah, they have some money. The fact that they have 80K to give this guy
True.
means that they've been doing
True.
it for some time.
but at this point, he's probably still doing like, I think we're still on like doing it for my family timeline. Like,
Yeah,
I think he still believes that, like, he's actually still doing it for his, because he did his math, I remember, and then he lost some money, so he had to do actually how much he needed. So at this point, it's probably when Walt is still like as decent a person as you
it
can
was
be.
season 3 where he shaves his head that he starts to be like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe I should just.
But I like the fact, I mean, it's another thing where it's like how we were shouting to see Saul Goodman from season 1, and then when we get it, we're like, oh fuck, forget, I don't want to go, let's go back, I don't want it. And I think here it's like, oh, give me Walt and Jesse, and then it comes in this episode where it's like, oh, this is a god. I mean, it's nice, it's loved. I feel like these guys can do this performance in their sleep now. They must just love, like, going into warm old shoes. But like when you do, you're like, oh, this is painful. This is like, you're showing me what. I don't like this. This is I don't like seeing this right now. This is meant to be a fun experience. This is not fun at all. So yeah, I really just like the way this show is like. This show always gives you, like, they say you want this, and then they give it to you, and like, oh no, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I didn't want this. This is not what I wanted.
Save me.
Yeah, please, I apologize. But yeah, and I think it's also just good how we get to see this whole episode, because like I said, all this happens in the quote unquote Better Call Saul episode of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And we get to see it from Saul's point of view. We get to see all the conversations he's having behind the scenes, and like kind of like the what do you call it, the thinking behind his action. So I think that's really nice. Again, I'm excited for the last 2. Maybe I shouldn't be, because it's probably going to be very depressing, but at least I know where we are now, like emotionally, so I know what to expect. I'm not.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, this is so surprising, because that's why I was looking for a happy ending, like I said earlier. But I don't know, I'm surprised that this is so depressing. But anyway, yeah, I guess it's 2 more. Gilligan and Gold. I think hopefully to be Jeeves with you next week for 12, and then we'll all come back for the finale. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts going into the last 2 before we leave here?
I guess I just hope that not too many innocents die, because once there is a Walt type around, innocents start dying.
Kevin Sussman's character that has cancer.
Yeah, exactly. Him.
I don't think he's long for this world.
Yeah, Jeffy's mom. You know, how do we even know? Like we know that Gene knows a lot about Walt. He's experienced Walt. He even mentions that in this episode. So I wonder if his kind of Walt-esque degradation is going to speed up. Like, he's going to become Walt faster than Walt did, and then he ends up doing things very quickly that would have taken Walt a long time to justify. Stuff like maybe killing Buddy to make sure he doesn't say anything.
Jesus.
So that's what I'm saying. I hope people don't start dropping dead, but it's not looking good. And I'm definitely looking forward to finding out what was said in that phone call. Yeah, I really hope they show us.
That's another reason for me to just. I never thought we're never going to see Kim again, but at least now I believe I don't see how we don't see Kim again. She's in Florida, man, working for a sprinkler company. I hope she's happy, or at least she's been happy these last couple of years.
I mean, at least she's not plunging sinks for.
So quick question: do you think? First of all, those guys were watching Jackie Chan Adventures, which I just loved. I love that that's what they were watching.
Yep.
So do you think Francesca is a landlord, or like a, what you call them when they maintain the building?
I'm not sure.
What Issa was in Insecure.
When he said, that's the thing, when he said we pay rent, I started to feel like she was a landlord.
Right?
So,
which, I mean, it's not, I mean, at least she got some money to buy property, which I guess would be a nice thing. But if she's not a landlord, it just means that she's
that's some income
as her job. Her job is just to maintain property, which is a bit tough.
She's so depressed.
Being followed, being listened to.
At least she's gotten something from Saul.
Yeah, at least she got some more money. Ebube, I just want you to know, and please listen. Whatever the problemo, we can fix it with dinero. Mucho dinero. So man.
Mucho dinero.
Mucho dinero. Anyways, on that note, I think we can wrap it up here. I was surprised. I didn't think we were able to get through this episode, but we were able to get through this very depressing episode. So thank you, Ibe, for helping me get
We
through.
made it.
Yeah, we did make it.
Yeah, next week it'll be depressing and action-packed. Yeah.
I mean, Gilligan is back. Look, when Gilligan is back, either it's going to be a shootout or it's going to be people walking across the desert. Gilligan is back, man. I don't know what to say to you. And I don't think he's written in a while on this show.
Mm-hmm.
I need to check him. I don't think he's written in a while. Anyways, anyway, thank you very much. See you again. Well, see you in a couple of weeks, but I'll hear you again next week. And yeah, thank you to everyone that's listening. Saul is coming to an end. It might not be a great end, but we know it to be great television, so that's fine. Yeah, so shout out to regular co-host Jibs, my other host Ebuka and Chinedu, and thank you, Ebube, for this. And again, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much.
To everyone that's listening, please follow us wherever you're listening. Listen to our industry podcast. Industry is fun this season. I've watched a few episodes and they're very good so far. So I hope you guys enjoy industry as well. And yeah, join us next week when I'll be joined by the only person. He's the only person that I would trust to be at the phone 5 months away. Daniel Kaluuya.
Yep.
Bye guys.